Hi there, this is Josh from Literary Gladiators, and today we are going into the vault and we will be discussing my 5 favorite books that I read in 2014. 2014 was the year that Literary Gladiators started, and at that time we were only doing general discussion. It wasn't until the very end of that year that I discovered what BookTube was all about. And so I put together a list on my blog, which I'll leave a link to down below, but that was the only, I didn't do any video where I counted down my favorites. I started doing that on this channel in 2015, which was the year that we started creating more content beyond the general discussions. But without further ado, I will begin counting down, starting from number 5, which my 5th favorite book that I read in 2014 was The Shining by Stephen King. This is his 3rd novel, and I think that this is the one that established him as his own individual writer in the horror fiction genre. At the time, I didn't like Carrie, and I still am not too fond of Carrie. I really have no interest in going back to revisiting it. And Salem's Lot I had read back in 8th grade, but didn't have much of a... it didn't really stick with me. But I have since revisited Salem's Lot. I revisited it in 2017 as a buddy read with Jesse, and I do think that it is a good book. But that's part of the vampire subgenre, but The Shining is something that seems to be very unique, that Stephen King created with his own ideas. Jack Torrance is an English instructor that had been fired, and he, his wife Wendy, and his son Danny moved to Colorado because Jack has been able to take a job overseeing the Overlook Hotel. But during the visit there, Danny comes across a lot of these horrifying demons. But the greatest demons that are at this hotel are the ones that end up possessing Jack Torrance. But the greatest monstrosity within this piece is monstrosity of alcoholism that lingers throughout this novel. And in the foreword here, Stephen King actually brings about the horrors of alcoholism that his father had. His father was an alcoholic. Stephen King had issues with drinking and with drugs, and he makes mention of the fact that that was the greatest horror about this novel. And a lot of the greatest horrors are the ones that are true. And to me, this was the second scariest Stephen King novel. The only one that I felt was scarier was Pet Sematary. And by that I mean as in a scary reading experience and the work getting under your skin. And I think that this one really got under my skin. Number 4 is The Fault in Our Stars by John Green. And I think that this is successful because it speaks to its audience so well. John Green is a very fascinating and intelligent individual, and I think that this book really examines and explores the humanity that comes with battling cancer, and in particular those that are teenagers. The Fault in Our Stars follows Hazel Grace, who has a thyroid cancer that has spread to her lungs and requires her to use oxygen. And she comes across a young man named Augustus, who is in a support group. He is was in remission for bone cancer, but it left him as an amputee. The two of them really begin to enjoy one another's company, and it gets to the point where they go on a trip to the Netherlands based off of Augustus's wish, based off of the Make-A-Wish idea that they use it for, they get one wish to fulfill one of their dreams or endeavors, and he uses his so that they can go to the Netherlands because Hazel wants to meet an author that wrote one of her favorite books, and she wants a conclusion to the novel that she so much enjoyed. This was so amazing that I read the last 150 pages in 3 hours. I was really immersed and engaged with this. I think that it really does a great job capturing the characters within this piece. And I really like the humor and the disposition that each of these characters displays. The one thing that really stuck out was when Augustus brought Hazel to his house for the first time. His parents were there, and he said that they're going to go watch a movie down in the basement. The father was, nice try, you're watching it in the living room. And he goes, oh, but I wanted to show her the basement. Then show her the basement, and then come up and watch the movie in the living room. And I just thought it was very well executed. Just the whole thing was very well executed. These are people that are incredibly, they're fighting for their lives, but yet they're still human beings that want to make the best out of the world around them. And I think that being able to show this compassion for one another is just, I think that it was done remarkably well within this novel. And I am inclined to read more by John Green. Number 3 on this list is The Absolutely True Diary of a Part-Time Indian by Sherman Alexie. I read this in the spring of 2014, and I was really amazed with how Alexie was able to capture what it was to be a native living in an Indian tribe. And this follows Arnold Spirit Jr., who was known as Junior. These are his diary submissions. And they're very clever and witty. Junior's part of the Spokane Reservation, but finally decides he wants to attend Reardon School, where a vast majority of the students are white, or they're not part of the reservation. This book pertains to Junior's longing to establish himself in society, and there's also some drawings within this piece, kind of like this. I thought that was very creatively inserted, and I reviewed and ranked this before Sherman Alexie fell out of favor due to actions of his that he took. And at the time, this was the premier work of literature pertaining to learning about the Native experience. I feel that within the last 9 years, a lot more has come out where people can read a novel or even a memoir that pertains to the living as a native. in particular in the United States, but you can also incorporate other indigenous individuals from other countries too. The second best book that I read in 2014 is Jacob von Gutten by Robert Walser. Robert Walser is, his work can be described as absurdist or existentialist. He is a Swiss writer to whom Hermann Hesse said, and I quote, "If he had 100,000 readers, the world would be a better place." And I agree completely with what he has to say here. This book pertains to the title character attending Benjametta Institute. It is a college where the instructors just sit around and remain dormant, and there's only one class called How a Boy Shall Behave. I think that this novel really fulfills absurdism in its finest in how it examines the purposelessness of the expectations of the endeavors of those around them. And this really had an impact on my thinking. It really said a lot about how we should be. Initially, it was how we should be living our lives and what kind of meaning it has in the greater scheme of things. However, I was thinking about it, and I may be thinking otherwise as to what this book was wanting you to think, or what the message was. But then you can also view it in a different light and utilize your thoughts that way. I think this is definitely something I would want to re-examine, because this can be interpreted in so many different ways, and I still see Walser as being a brilliant hidden gem that I think more people should be reading. I know that we discussed The Walk on our channel, and the other panelists were not as fond as I was about The Walk. I liked it more than each of them, even though I personally thought that this was better. And I do want to read more by Robert Walser. And the best book that I read in 2014 is my second favorite book of all time, and that is Fahrenheit 451 by Ray Bradbury. I first read Fahrenheit 451 as a sophomore in high school. It didn't resonate with me as much then, but then when I reread it in 2014, I thought it was incredible. And I'm so glad I reread it, and I'm so glad that I immersed myself in it. And on October 19th of this year, it will be the 70th anniversary of the release of Fahrenheit 451. The concept pertains to a fireman by the name of Guy Montag in a society where firemen do not put out fires, but they start fires in order to burn books. This is a society that no longer cares for books, and this is a step into censoring the world around them so that people become subservient and in control of the unseen authorities. The greatest authority directly to Guy is his supervisor, Beatty, who represents he is a representative of the authority, just as Guy is a representative of the common person who initially does what they're told because they feel it is right and proper. But then when he meets Clarice and she tells him about the beauty of the natural world and the world that was, uh, he begins to develop a different way of thinking, and she's the representative the of the general idea of reason, whereas Faber is the representative of intellectual thought, while his wife Mildred is a representative of the conformist. So that is taking in and a consumer of this dystopia taking place around her. Fahrenheit 451 asks the question of, and I quote from my blog, what if their government went about censoring its citizens by destroying any evidence of what really happened in the way of burning books, and create a thoughtless environment that looks at rewritten history but cares more about watching television shows that allow them to grow involved? The one thing that really stuck out to me in this book as far as rewriting history is concerned is the idea that Benjamin Franklin created the fire department and it was always intended to burn books, when we all know that that is not true. The fire department was created to put out fires, and I think that that is a reason that there's a stronger demand when it comes to encouraging people, and especially our youth, to read, and in particular, read physical books. And I think it's also important that they're able to develop a love for physical books. I think that Fahrenheit 451 is a book that people need to pick up, read, and learn from. I think that this is brilliant in every aspect. And I think that the message really outdoes anything that may lead people to question the types that the characters may be. But I think that they're strong enough to fulfill the types that they happen to be. Because this was originally a shorter version that was published under the title The Fireman, but that appeared in Galaxy Science Fiction. But then we have this completed version of Fahrenheit 451, which is rightfully revered to this day. And I really think that I still highly encourage people to read this. And I think it's very important to have this as part of your collection. These are my 5 favorite books that I read in 2014. I would like to create videos where I talk about my favorite books from each of the years that I put lists together. I started chronicling what it was I read in 2008. Technically it was 2007, but it was at the very end of the year. So I am planning to put together lists of the 10 best books that I read in 2008, 2009, 2010, 2011, and 2012 as well. And I want to thank you for tuning into this video. I hope you check out some more videos from our channel. If you like what you see, please subscribe. If you really like what you see, please support us on Patreon, because the money that we make will allow us to provide you, the viewer, with even more great content on this channel. And for our patrons, we will be able to provide you with even more exclusive content. Thank you for tuning in, and for now, keep reading.